So today we're here at Bradley and O'Brien's hut. It's the fourth hut that we're rebuilding as part of the 11 huts that unfortunately were destroyed in the 2020 bushfires. Bradley O'Brien's hut was built in about 1952, 1953 by Jack Bailey, a builder from Tumbarumba. And he also built Round Mountain Hut, which is further down the valley here. The hut was built for Pat O'Brien, also known as Paddy or Hugh O'Brien, and Jack Bradley, who had a number of snow leases in the area for summer grazing. The Bradley's sons also helped with the building and cutting the saplings for the hut. And the timber for the hut came from just on the northeastern ridge behind the hut here at Bradley and O'Brien's. So the guys did prefabricating of the materials at Chimit over winter, and then when enough of the snow had melted, in about middle of September, we were able to start the rebuilding of this hut here.
We're going to take 2 packs that are over there, so that trailer can just go as it is.
Yep, right out.
All this iron on one load. There's 2 packs of timber there, those slabs there, and all those posts on the ground. So there's probably 2 loads there, 1 load there, 1 or 2 there. So it's about a 2-hour drive, but it'll probably take a little bit longer today with all these trailers and that.
So the Wagga 4-wheel drive offered to assist when they heard about the project. So we've been utilising them to help transport the materials up to site. So from Chimit, they brought their 4-wheel drives and trailers, and we loaded them all up and helped us transport the logs and corrugated iron and other timbers needed for the job. So it was fantastic to have them along to help with the project, and they also helped with some of the building as well. So this is in what we call the northern half of Kosciuszko National Park. Just Cabramurra's just over the valley here, and Chimit's over this way. So we call that sort of the northwestern side of on the western fall of the main range and Kosciuszko. So most people think of Kosciuszko National Park as the areas down south around Jindabyne and going up to Kosciuszko, but don't realise that we've got a lot of area up here which is fantastic to explore, whether you want to ride or walk or bike ride or drive. Nice, very scenic areas where we've got high plains and nice mountains, and then they drop off down into the valleys of Chimit River and Yukonbean River. So you are quite high here, you're in the sort of high plains area, and you can look over towards Jagungal and at the back of Main Range and Greymare Mountains. So it is very scenic on this drive. It's a beautiful drive if you can come this way from Kyandra on this, what we call the link road heading down towards Cancoban. It's a pretty drive to look around the backs of the Main Range area, and then you can also look down into Victoria as well, so it is quite scenic. Yes, they've certainly endured mountain weather for this hut as well. So it's much quicker for them to stay on site and rather than having to pack up and then travel back into Chimit. It's sort of about a 2-hour drive. But when you get in the mountains, you've got to put up with the cold weather, and the stockmen and those who were living in the mountains were experiencing as well. Now, I just set up camp, all started building, and then another dump of snow came. So I think they said they were experiencing -10-degree temperatures, so they woke up to very cold temperatures in the morning with frozen water. It was a bit hard getting out of bed to start work, so yes, they had to sweep the snow off the structure to start work again in the snow. So in about 1958, summer grazing ceased above 1370 metres by the Crown, and then Kosciuszko State Park was declared in 1944, and then the place started being used by local pony clubs in the area, and other walking groups used to use the hut for sheltering in. Primary access to that area when the Bradleys and O'Briens had the lease it was stock routes by horseback from the west, so they used to follow routes up to the mountains. It used to take them about a day to ride up there and about 5 days to drive the cattle up there with horses and walking the stock in front of them. And then there was a rough track that came across from Kiandra to the 15-mile ridge, but it could only really be traversed by blitz trucks. And then when roads started being developed in the area with this construction of the Snowy scheme, roads became a lot better, so then cars were able to follow past that hut, which we see today. So when we're rebuilding the huts, we don't do replicas, we try and capture the significant elements, what people liked about the huts, and then do a bit of the now in their design as well, including fire protection. So we've added with these huts, we've tried to reduce the gaps, so to stop embers with foams and things like that, so embers can't get inside the hut, and we've angled the windowsills and covered them with iron, so if any embers land on those windowsills, they can't ignite and again burn the hut down. And we'll be treating the timbers with fire retardant as well, which is a chemical that reduces the chance of ignition of the timber when a fire comes through. So unfortunately the fires started just to the northwest of us, and then under really strong winds, we had over 100 km/h winds. The fire then ran back up into the mountains here, up from the lower areas, raced up the side of the hills and over this way behind us. So you can see the trees around us have been burnt. So we hope these sorts of things will help protect the hut when the next fires come through. Rebuilding the hut, as well as retaining the fabric and the looks of these special buildings, they are also important for capturing the social significance of the place. So families who lived and worked here, so the Bradleys and O'Briens, they're really keen to come and visit the hut again and bring their kids here. So we keep that connection going and keep their stories and their connections with the place. That's why I enjoy working on this rebuilding program, is meeting the families. And they'll tell you stories about their times when they were travelling up to the mountains, or when they were living in the mountains. And to see the sparkle in their eye when they talk about their times here, history disappears, and it's really important we try and keep these connections and information gathering going, so we keep this information for the next generation.
My grandfather, he was Hugh O'Brien, but they called him Paddy. My father was Patrick George, they called him Rex. Plum was actually called Terry. Freck was called Ron. So I think they're pretty dodgy. These mountain cattlemen, the Bradleys and O'Brien, they took this lease over back in 1948, and the first year when they walked the cattle up, they walked the cattle from our place at Pound Creek up to McPherson Plains, where Bradley's had McPherson Plains. They walked the cattle then down Brandy Mary Spur, down into Lobbs Hole, and then they came out at 3 Mile Dam, and then they walked 3 Mile Dam back across Aberjacks back to here. That was the first year. But then when they were riding their horses, they found a better track, which was where the actually Blackjack Fire Trail is now. So the first year they walked cattle through there. Jack Bradley used to ride out in front, and he'd crack his whip because it's fairly thick scrub, and then they just followed the cattle on the contours to where he was, and they came over Emu Plains and Manjar to here. The first 3 years they camped in Round Mountain Hut over there, and then it was in in the summer of 52 and 53, where they actually decided to build the hut here. They actually dug a well out the back here, which you can see where's the spring, and they got down about 3 or 4 foot, and they found these little black and yellow frogs. And they said they were the best fishing baits they've ever had. So I just like to say on behalf of the O'Brien and Bradley family, thanks for the Kosciuszko Hut Association and also the National Parks for rebuilding this hut. Like, it is just a spitting image of what the old hut was, and they've done an absolutely brilliant job. Wife and I, Joe, came up here a couple of months ago after it was first done, and couldn't believe how great it was. So credit to them, and I just thank the National Parks. The history of the mountain cattlemen is something which needs to be saved. They were iconic parts of Australia. So to have these huts here, people can drop in and think, oh, wow, someone used to live here. Someone used to run cattle here. It's all part of our history, and it's a great thing, to have kept.
You're gonna cut it this time, Mum. 1, 2, 3, go!
Yes, so the hut will continue to be used for shelter for people who are travelling in the area and want to provide a destination to come and have a look and experience how people were living and working in the mountains, as well as for shelter in bad weather if people come through this area, and it'll provide that shelter as well.